Gideon Hale was 40 miles away when his brother burned. The call came at 4:11 a.m., a deputy from the county sheriff's office, voice flat, professional, the way they sound when the news is the kind that doesn't get better with phrasing. "Mr. Hale, there's been a fire at your residence on Buckner Road. The structure is a total loss. I'm sorry to tell you that your brother Theodore was found inside." Gideon was standing in a cabin near Lake Alton, annual fishing trip, same week every year for 19 years. He drove home in the dark, 90 minutes. He didn't turn on the radio. When he reached Buckner Road, the house was gone, just the chimney and part of the north wall. Everything else was ash and wet black wood, still smoking in the early light. Theo's wheelchair was in the front yard. The firefighters had pulled it out. The frame was melted on one side. Theo was 62, Gideon's younger brother by 6 years. Multiple sclerosis, diagnosed at 41. By 53, he was in the wheelchair full-time. By 58, his arms worked enough to feed himself and operate the chair, but not much more. Gideon had moved in 9 years ago. He'd been retired from carpentry for 2 years by then, and Theo needed someone. Not a nurse, not an aide, a brother. They had a routine. Gideon made breakfast. Theo listened to the radio and complained about the coffee. In the afternoons, Gideon wheeled Theo onto the porch, and they sat there watching the field behind the house. Theo liked the birds. He knew every species by sound. "That's a red-winged blackbird, Gideon." "I know what it is." "You didn't yesterday." The house was Theo's. Their parents left it to him because he needed it most. Gideon never argued with that. It was the right call. The house was small, paid for, and exactly where Theo wanted to die. He just didn't plan on dying like this.
Wesley came to the funeral in a black shirt with no tie. Gideon's son, 39. He stood in the back row and left before the reception. He shook 2 hands on the way out. Neither of them was Gideon's. Wesley had visited Theo twice in the last year. Both times he'd asked about the house, the insurance, whether the policy had been updated. Theo had told Gideon about those conversations. He'd said it carefully, the way Theo said everything that mattered. "Your boy asked about my insurance again, Gideon." "What'd you say?" "Told him it was none of his business." He didn't like that. Gideon had let it go. Wesley was always asking about money. It was the only language he spoke fluently. The insurance on the house was $290,000. Theo had no children. The beneficiary was Wesley, as next of kin on the Hale side. Theo had set that up years ago, when Wesley was still someone worth trusting.
The fire marshal arrived on Thursday. Her name was Brenda Koss, 56. She'd been investigating fires for 24 years, and she walked the site the way a surgeon reads an X-ray. She spent 3 hours on the property. She took samples from the soil around the foundation. She photographed the burn patterns on what remained of the walls. She found something outside Theo's bedroom window. A pour trail. Gasoline soaked into the ground in a line that ran from the back of the property to the base of the window. Someone had walked to Theo's room, poured accelerant along the exterior wall, and lit it. The fire started at the window, Theo's window, the room where he slept every night in a hospital bed he couldn't leave without help. Brenda crouched beside the pour trail for a long time. She took 4 samples. She didn't say anything to Gideon yet. But when she left, she made 2 calls. One to the county sheriff, one to the state crime lab.
The investigation moved fast after the lab confirmed the accelerant. Gasoline. Common, untraceable by brand. But the pour pattern told a story. Whoever did this knew where Theo slept, knew which window was his, knew the layout of the house. Detectives pulled Wesley's phone records. His cell pinged a tower 6 miles from Buckner Road at 2:48 a.m. the night of the fire. He had told the sheriff he was home in Dayton, 40 miles east. His phone said otherwise.
They pulled his bank records next. 3 cash withdrawals in the week before the fire. $400, $350, $500. All from ATMs near Buckner Road, all after midnight. And one purchase 2 days before the fire. A 5-gallon gas can from a hardware store on Route 9. Paid cash. But the store had cameras. The image was clear. Wesley Hale. Ball cap. Same black jacket he wore to the funeral.
The 911 recording was 47 seconds long. Brenda played it for Gideon in her office. She asked if he was sure he wanted to hear it. He said yes. The first 10 seconds were smoke alarm and static. Then Theo's voice, thin, struggling. "There's a fire, 114 Buckner Road. I can't get out. I'm in the back bedroom. I can't get to the door." The dispatcher asked his name. "Theo, Theodore Hale. I'm in a wheelchair. I can't get to the door." 20 seconds of coughing, the alarm screaming in the background. Then Theo said something that made the dispatcher pause. "My nephew Wesley did this. Wesley Hale. Tell my brother." 9 more seconds. The coughing stopped. The line stayed open. Brenda turned off the recording. The office was quiet. Gideon sat in the chair across from her. His hands were on his knees. He was looking at the wall behind her, at a spot where the paint was chipping. He said, "Play it again."
The last 9 seconds were the ones that broke him. After Theo named Wesley, after the coughing stopped, there was a pause. 4 seconds of smoke and alarm. Then Theo's voice one more time. Barely there. Almost gone. "Tell Gideon, I'm sorry I couldn't get out." Gideon listened to that sentence 3 times. Each time, the room got smaller. His brother, trapped in a bed he couldn't leave, in a room filling with smoke that his own nephew had set, used his last breath to apologize. Theo was sorry for not being able to save himself, for not being strong enough, for dying in a way that would make Gideon carry it forever. Gideon drove home that afternoon. He pulled over twice on Route 9, not because of traffic, because his hands wouldn't stop shaking, and he couldn't see the road through what was happening to his face.
Wesley was arrested at his apartment in Dayton on a Friday morning. He was eating cereal when the deputies came through the door. He denied everything, said he was home the night of the fire, said his phone must have been wrong, said he loved his uncle. The detective set the gas can receipt on the table, then the cell tower data, then the store camera image. Wesley stopped talking. His lawyer arrived within the hour. The charges: first-degree murder, arson of an occupied dwelling, and insurance fraud. The murder charge was felony murder because Theo was a vulnerable adult who could not escape. The state sought life without parole. Gideon attended the arraignment. He sat in the gallery. Wesley looked at him once from the defense table. Gideon looked back. He didn't blink. He didn't nod. He didn't look away. He just let his son see exactly what was behind his eyes.
The trial lasted 4 days. The prosecution played the 911 recording on the first morning. Several jurors looked at the floor. One asked for a break. Wesley's attorney argued that the fire could have been accidental, that Theo was confused, that a dying man's words were unreliable. Brenda Koss took the stand for 2 hours. She walked the jury through the pour trail, the accelerant, the pattern that pointed directly at Theo's window. She said in 24 years of investigating fires, she had never seen a pour trail that specific by accident. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Wesley showed no reaction. Gideon was sitting in the second row. He heard the word guilty and he closed his eyes. Not in relief. In something heavier than that. The judge sentenced Wesley to life without parole. He said one sentence before passing the sentence. "Mr. Hale, Your uncle used his last 47 seconds on this earth to make sure the truth survived. This court intends to honor that.
Gideon sold the land 6 months later. He couldn't rebuild on it. The soil still smelled like ash when it rained. He kept one thing, a section of porch railing that survived the fire, charred on one end, clean on the other. The part where Theo used to rest his arm while they watched the field. Gideon built a bench from new oak and placed it at the edge of the property, facing the tree line where the birds came in the morning. He bolted the porch railing section to the back of the bench, burned end and all. He made a small brass plaque and screwed it to the seat. Theo Hale sat here every morning and watched the birds. 1963, 2026. He goes back every Saturday. He sits on the bench. He brings coffee. He doesn't fish anymore. Last week, a red-winged blackbird landed on the railing, sat there for a full minute, looking at him. Gideon looked back. "I know what you are," he said.